Good morning, everybody. I know it's been a couple days since we've been out here in the shop. It is a cold 30 degrees this morning with a wind chill of about 23. So the girls are inside. They're chilling out. They're waking up, everything. But I need to get this bike back together and we need to go start giving some stuff away. So hopefully it'll warm up a little bit later today. We can have some videos of playing, but let's get some seats and handlebars on this bike real quick. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of adjustment or tightening or anything right now on the seats, handlebars, all that, because I don't know where this bike's going to go. I don't know who this bike's going to go to. So, our big deal is just get kind of everything together. This bike's it's all steel. There's not a whole lot of composite or anything going on, but different materials, guys, sometimes will react. It's always good to take a little bit of anti-seize or grease, especially if you're going from a steel to like an aluminum seat post. You want to anti-seize or grease your tube and your post before you put them together. Not a lot. I mean, you're not trying to sit here and slide all over the place. You're not trying to make your seat slippery. You're trying to prevent, I don't know if it's coming through on the camera, and I've cleaned most of it off, but you're trying to prevent rust. You're trying to prevent corrosion. You're trying to prevent a stuck seat when you're getting ready to do a trick or something and you need to lower your seat so you have a little bit more clearance. You gotta flip the bike or something like that. It's the last thing you want is a stuck seat post, guys. So take a little time, be a little diligent, a little light coat. Doesn't need a lot. Like I said, we're not trying to make it roll like we're trying to make the bearings roll. We're just trying to keep it with a little coat of protection on there so you're not sliding all over the dang place. Like I said, we don't really know who this bike's going to go to. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just jam it down. We'll always have a bag with us at the park, so we'll always have tools there. This bike finds a home. We'll help the kiddo set it up before he takes it home. But for right now, we're just going to go snug enough that stuff's not going to come apart all over the back of the car. Seat post is on, guys. Next, before we go to wheels on this thing, we're going to go to bars. Handlebars, we got the same thing going on here. You've got different materials on different type of bikes. Like I said, this one's all steel to steel. Not going to be that big of a deal. We've got a little bit of grease down in the tube from when we put everything back together the other day. We're just going to throw a little bit more down there. And again, all we're trying to do is prevent a little bit of rust, prevent a little bit of corrosion, and make it to where next time you adjust, you want to change your stem, you want to change your bars, you're not sitting here just flat fighting to get all this stuff apart. And seat and bars, guys, are really that simple. A lot of guys will lay the bike on the side so you can look down the line of the bars. The way the camera's pointed, you probably can't tell. This kid's had these about straight up, which is about where I'm going to leave them. See a lot of kids at the skate park that try to roll their bike around with the bars leaning way forward. I've got my old Mongoose Sniper back there. Bars are leaning forward on it, but for a lot of its purpose anymore. It's kind of a block beater. We take it around and down the street, stuff like that. And so I kind of lean the bars forward for just that look that I'm a 90s kid, man. I mean, I just wanted that gangster look, I guess is the best way to say it on that bike. But my park bike, they're barely forward, but they're almost straight up and down. The more forward you get, the more forward over the bike you are, the more weight on your front end. And you're trying to pop up, learn to do bunny hops, do all that stuff. It's not going to be what you want it to be if you're leaning over the nose of the bike. So if you're going to be block beaten, cool. If you're not going to be block beaten, pull your bars back, guys. Have some fun with your bike. After we get these bars on, we are going to attempt, and this might take putting a crimp back on here, cutting one off, putting one on here, blah, blah, blah. But newer cables is easy. We're going back with OEM parts, I guess would be the best way to say it. These cables are still working, and I don't have any spares laying around right now. So we're going back here. When you got a gyro like this, you run down the center of your bolt. Your bolt has a hole in the top of it. You run down your bolt. Gizmo wants to go outside. Run back down your fork. Trust me, guys, getting this cable in right now is a lot easier than it is getting it when you got the tire on here. I've made that mistake 100 times. But I'm going to leave that for now. I'm just going to kind of throw these cables back down here under the handlebars for now. That's all fine tuning, finishing up stuff that we got to do. But we've got bars on this bike. We've got a seat on this bike. The only thing that's keeping it from being a bike is it's not rolling nowhere. So let's see what we can fix on that. What are you doing down here, Skeezy? Come here. We got a helper in the shop today. This is my mascot and all around security. All right, we discussed this back wheel in the last video, guys. Freewheel's done, bearings are done, this side's done. This side, your wheel is completely empty, nothing's in there. These little Kent bikes, one thing that I like that they do on them is they do free bearings. They do loose ball bearings on these things. And that's an old school thing. They're not in the cage. I like the free bearings if you're going to do ball bearings. I think that's a cool deal. But you can see down here on our little rag here, we've got bearings, wheel parts, axles, view tools, blah blah blah. And we're going to just play with some red and tacky and put this back wheel back together real quick. Can I sit in my chair, please, ma'am? Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. Awesome. So, as before, head tube, bottom bracket. We're going to take this inner race a little bit here, and we're just going to kind of pack this thing with grease, especially with loose bearings, guys. Loose bearings, the cage, you just kind of drop them over the axle, they're in, they're good. Loose bearings, these guys are going to kind of roll around, they're going to slip out of your hands, they're going to be a pain in the butt, but the bike just, you got more bearings, more roll, you don't have that cage in your way. To me, the bike just likes them better, the bike runs smoother. I was really surprised to see for $100 or $120 or less Walmart bike have loose bearings in the wheels. I thought that was awesome. But pack a little grease in there like that, and then we're just going to start kind of dropping these dudes in. The cages, you got extra room and stuff in there. You want to make sure you got good grease in there and you're not running nothing dry. Guys, these bearings, by the time I get them in here side by side, a lot of people put grease on the bearings too. Then you're slipping, dropping them out of your hands. This, that, and the other. If you do drop bearings, usually there's a local bearing place around. West Texas Bearing here. If I got to go get bearings, I can run up and they have loose bearings. Little tricky on sizes sometimes. There's metric sizes, standard sizes, just like nuts and bolts when you go to the hardware store. Take one of the bearings with you. Say, hey, I'm rebuilding a bike. I lost one of these. What do you got? And they can usually size it up a lot better and easier than you can. And then there's some places that have just kits. If you're going to do a lot of this building like we are, eventually that's what I'm going to go to. I'm going to order a bearing kit, and I'm just going to have all different size bearings, because we do drop them. We drop them all the time, and they drop, they bounce, they're gone. But see, I kind of shove the bearings down in the grease, and then I just kind of pack the grease back around them like we do with the ones that are in the cage. These are going to be your outer races or your seals. Same as before. Too much grease is better than not enough grease, so we're going to just do a little thin layer going around this dude. Now the tricky things on anything that have ball bearings in like this, sealed bearings ain't near as big of a deal. And y'all can see here, guys, this is an old bike that's been left outside, like I said. So I'm going to take and even rub a little bit of grease on these threads. It's going to just help me get stuff rolling and together a whole lot easier than if I try to leave it dry. And basically now this thing's just going to roll down on here. Surprised I hadn't had kiddos come in yet. Alexa, what's the current temperature?
Right now, it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
Just like before, guys, we got some grease pushing down and some extra popping out. Big globs of excess. Get the heck out of the way. Now, when I take axles apart, I'll usually only try to take one side apart. As you can see here, I've still got this race and this keeper on this side. That way when I go back with the front axle, it stays centered where it was. You take both sides apart, or like some of the multi-speed bikes we've turned into fixed gear, you gotta recenter that axle, and that can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. Now usually, especially on these department store bikes, most of these you can get a 15 millimeter on here when you're coming down with this thing, and we'll get it to that point, and then I'll get on here and you grab the axle with your other hand and you just kind of hand tighten it, and then we want to see what it feels like. That's way too tight. See, this thing is going to, come on, run up. You run your bearings too tight, your wheel's not going to spin free and you're going to damage your bearings. You run your bearings too loose, your wheel's going to have play in it and you're going to damage your bearings. So this is the fun part on both wheels is you get that thing about where you want it, and then you got to get this keeper nut on here. Oh man, that's so much easier after you put some grease on some threads to run stuff up them. Now, this is where we're going to have a little bit of fun here. This takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of finesse, and it might take a couple extra adjustments, guys. I've gone out, jumped on bikes that I've done, and come back in. Nah, that ain't gonna work. That wheel's running tight. That wheel's banging around. It'll take a little bit of time. That keeper is usually a 17 instead of a 15. And then you need something thin like this to get in and hold on the back side of that thing. Sometimes you can get on the other side and hold it enough, but if you just try to tighten that down, it's going to catch on the face here, and it's just going to run that thing back in there and tighten your axle back down. And you don't want your wheel tight. You don't want your axle tight. You want, as you can see, I'm holding the axle still, and that thing's just beautiful. Free spinning. You don't feel no jerking, no. And that's what, when you're checking these guys, you want to look for that. You want to hear grinding, nasty, dirty noises. You want to get rid of that. You want any play, any jerking, anything like that. You put this thing back together, and you still have a spot where you can feel it hit as it's spinning around. You probably want to replace your races and your outer cups. Go to a bike shop and tell them, hey, I need these parts for this type of wheel, and get the right stuff and get it replaced, because it's just you've got damage too far gone at that point in time. Front wheel is going to go back together the same way the rear wheel went together, except we're not going to have a drive side on the front wheel. We're going to have the same cup on each side. You'll pack, throw your bearings around, carefully slip your axle down so you don't knock your bearings into your holes. And then the same thing here, just like I did on that back wheel. I'm not going to bore y'all and do the whole front wheel assembly on this video or on this bike. We've done one, and your unsealed hubs are your unsealed hubs. It's gonna be the same thing front and back. Next thing we're gonna do, and like I said, this is a backyard build. This is one that we got. We're fixing up. We're giving away. If we've got stuff laying around, somebody's donated stuff, something like that, we'll put some new parts on every once in a while. But we try to do these on as much of a budget as we can, so we can get them back out and going as well as we can. Plus, it teaches my kids how to work with what you got, and it teaches the kids that we're getting these to just how to appreciate what you got. I'm going to put that tire on like that. I don't know. I was talking. I'm sorry, but I dropped my valve stem into my hole, and I just kind of started my first bead around, and then after that, you can just kind of taco it in on an old tire. New tires are kind of a little bit more of a pain, but that's a wheel reassembled, bearings greased, freewheels going. Everything's working exactly like it's supposed to, and we'll throw this back on a bike. We'll throw that one back together, and for right now, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.